All right, so hopefully, so far your experiences here with creative nonfiction have been positive. So let's go ahead and continue here. And of course, I guess if there's one big thing that's going to be like the key to creative nonfiction, that's going to be the thing that makes it the most like fiction, and that's of course using sensory language, using all that descriptive writing, right? And of course, one of the biggest directives, I guess, in all of creative writing is one that I know you've heard a million times probably throughout your life. That's show, don't tell, right? That's like the number one advice to writers. So of course that means you need to use descriptive details in your writing, right? So you use descriptive details. There's a blog post by Rise Alexander summed up the difference between mediocre writing and exceptional writing really quickly, succinctly, and nicely. Said that detail makes the difference between boring and terrific writing. That it's the difference between a pencil sketch and a lush oil painting. And as a writer, of course, words are your paint. Okay, so use all the colors. It's a really good quote. I think they put it very, very, very well. Now, back in lesson 7, way back, if we can remember that far back, we talked about descriptive writing. Okay, so quick recap of some of the things that we talked about there back in lesson 7. We said descriptive writing was what actually brought the world of your text to the reader. It's like that's what got the reader actually involved in the world. It's a descriptive writing because that's what evokes the sights, the smells, the sounds, the textures, the tastes, and so forth and so on. That's also how you, as a writer, are able to establish a mood, overall atmosphere, feel of that particular piece, because that's what creates that dominant impression. It's that use of descriptive language, right? Also allows you to be vivid rather than vague. I think we talked about a burrito, I think, and we said that the vague description of the burrito was gross, but the vivid one was about like rancid filling oozing out of the wrapper to escape a culinary nightmare or something like that. All right, so the big difference between vivid versus vague. And of course, there was also the technique of varying sentence structure and all of that, which we've talked about several times. But of course, the most important part probably of all that descriptive writing is the use of sensory details. And of course, that's what we're going to focus on here. Back in lesson 7, talked about using sight, smell, sound, touch, taste, so forth to sketch an impression in the writing, because that's what actually makes the picture. I think the example that we gave specifically for sensory writing was it wasn't I walked on the beach, but the salt air burned my nose as the warm sand wormed its way between my scorched toes. Right? Because that's much more descriptive. It's using sensory, it's using smell, it's using taste, it's using touch, and all of those things. In her blog on Book Baby, Nancy Erickson actually there was a blog post about it said using sensory language to make your writing come alive. I think was what it was called. But basically, she defines sensory language for you, which of course is really obvious. It's the language of the senses. Okay. For some reason, we sometimes have a hard time remembering that that's all sensory language is. We're just saying it uses the senses. Okay, so when you employ sensory language, you're using that detail to describe those things that you see, smell, hear, taste, so forth. Here's the example that she used, and I thought this was actually very good because she itemizes all the different senses that are in this description. Okay, she says you don't write I was upset when my boyfriend left me for another woman. Instead, you write, he brought me in close, and I saw him manage a smile as he whispered, this is it. I have to leave you. My throat constricted. I fought to breathe. I blinked long and hard, trying not to cry, but one hot tear escaped. I felt it roll down my cheek and salt my upper lip. Now, in that passage, she includes 4 of the 5 senses. He whispered, so hearing, right? Says, my throat constricted, one hot tear, touch. Okay. I saw him manage a smile, sight. Salted, my upper lip, taste. The only one that she doesn't use is smell. Right? And that's just in that one little passage. So be thinking about that. You can really get descriptive in the way that you approach the situations that you choose to write about. And it's that sensory language that immerses the reader in the scene. Okay, it's what helps the reader experience it rather than just digest it. We don't want them to just digest it and understand it. We want them to actually experience your writing, right? Okay, so things to remember here. There are 4 characteristics of really solid descriptive writing. Okay, so good descriptive writing includes many vivid sensory details that paint a picture and they appeal to all the reader's senses, sight, hearing, touch, so forth. Okay, so vivid sensory details. Good descriptive writing includes vivid sensory details. Descriptive writing could also paint pictures of the feelings of a person, place, thing, whatever it evokes in the writer. So it does not necessarily have to just be, like looking around and describing the situation. It's also what you're feeling too as that narrator. And in creative nonfiction, if you're going to be that central character, what you were going through. Characteristic number 2, of course, is that good descriptive writing uses figurative language, figures of speech, figurative language. That's things like analogies, similes, metaphors, things like that. Helps paint that picture in the reader's mind. What better use of automatopoeia, of course, than appealing to the sound, the sense of sound. All right. Number 3, good descriptive writing uses precise language. Okay, we're not talking general adjective, nouns, passive verbs. No, we're talking specific adjectives, strong action verbs. Okay, because that's what's going to paint that vivid picture. It's going to use that precise, bold language. Okay, there's a big difference between those 2 extremes. All right, and number 4, fourth characteristic of good descriptive writing, and that, of course, is that it is organized. Okay, good descriptive writing has to be organized. Once you start talking about all the flowery language and all that stuff, we tend to sometimes forget about some of those things that make everything work together. You still need a backbone. You still need that structure. So you can organize descriptive writing in lots of different ways, just like you can organize anything else. It could be chronological, based on time. It could be spatial, based on location. Could be order of importance. It's the same things that you would use to organize absolutely anything. But you got to remember to make sure that you have that organization there. So like if you're describing a person, maybe you start with physical and then move on to how they feel or how they think or how they act or something like that. But it's based on whatever's going to be the most important there for us as a reader. So you want to make sure that you have that organization to your descriptive writing as well. So those are the 4 characteristics. We've got vivid sensory details, we've got figurative language, we've got precise language, and we've got a sense of organization. Those are those 4 characteristics of good descriptive writing. And of course, that good descriptive writing is going to be the cornerstone of good creative nonfiction, right? Because that's what makes it, that's the creative part of the word creative in creative nonfiction. All right, now I included in this section actually for you, it's a really simplistic, I apologize for that, I guess. It's very simplistic, but it's effective graphic organizer. In case you ever get stuck with a moment, because then you can give it a look, and you've got a little chart there for each of the senses. And so you can think about, okay, well, what can I add to this to break it down? And that way you can I guess make sure that you're not leaving anything out or leaving any stone unturned. All right, definitely a good asset that you can use to your advantage. All right, so I guess that's what I wanted to say with sensory language here. So let's start talking about your writing for today.